Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. As you can see, I'm joined by James Benge for this week's Inside Arsenal Extra Time. James, how you doing, mate? All good?
Yeah, quite groggy and feel run down and exhausted. It's these 8:15 kickoffs, man. I'm sure it was great for everyone that was like watching on Amazon Prime and you could flip from the Liverpool game at half time and all that. But I don't know about you, man, but I just feel completely wiped out. I got home, put match of the day on. It was a good match of the day, so pretty much made it to the end. And I looked up, it was 2 a.m.
What time did you get back from the stadium?
12:30.
12:30. Yeah, I think I was home just after 12, which isn't bad. Actually, 12:30 is not bad considering you're in the press box.
Yeah, not bad
Honest,
at all.
it's
I mean,
quite quick.
It was really a quick piece on Ruben Amorim. Amorim's presses first, so I'm like, quite just go in the piece, so I could get out of there before midnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that game, obviously, in today's show. Worth plenty to discuss in that. We'll look ahead to the weekend as well. Big game coming up against Fulham. What did you make of it last night then from the press box? It was a weird game, I thought. Very much that classic game of two halves, wasn't it? I thought it was it was a non-event really in the first half. Second half completely different. What were your sort of immediate takeaways from it?
I mean, on the football pitch, I thought that really what we saw, and I think this was maybe something that the crowd didn't necessarily grasp, and not that it's up to me to tell 60,000 people whether they're understanding the game right. But I just thought that Manchester United played a really good game of defensive football in that first half. Not just, without the ball, but with it as well. I thought they were really good at dealing with Arsenal's press. I thought Mazraoui was fantastic in terms of getting on, using his two-footedness to get away from Saka. And I think the fact that came with like United not really putting any great pressure on Arsenal, it sort of felt to me, it made the crowd feel like, come on, lads, this lot are rubbish, or this lot are there to be taken. We're better than them. And it's Man United. We want to see more. And I thought by the standards of the Emirates over the last few years, it was quite a spiky and grouchy crowd. I don't know if that was your experience. Like, we are literally at opposite ends of the ground, so maybe it was very different when you're nearer the United fans and you're trying to give, and you've got a bit more give and take. But it felt like it was getting quite frustrated.
Yeah, I think
Until,
there was some frustration creeping in. A lot of people around me though were quite aware that Man United were doing a decent job in what they were trying to do. There was a lot of talk about, that yes, there was frustration, I think, at maybe the speed of which Arsenal were playing, but there was an acceptance United's game plan was working pretty well, and tactically they were getting it spot on from a defensive point of view. But I do think Arsenal played into their hands a bit. I agree. I thought they were good. United, they kept things tight. Arsenal had very little space to work with. When they did get out wide, they were sort of quickly doubled up on. There was just very little room for them to really exploit. But I thought it was, when Arsenal get into that sort of slow pattern of play a bit in, and it's all don't take that extra chance and move forward, and instead they'll go back. They just fell into that trap a little bit, I think, because of how tight it was in front of them. I thought it was completely different from the first whistle in the second half. It was completely different. Whatever Mikel said in the changing room, and I know in the press conference he said they made a few tweaks at half time, and whatever he said and told them to do, you could see it was a different Arsenal team in the second half. And as soon as the goal went in and United had to change things, it was just very open. It was a completely different game. But yeah, the first half was a tough watch. I can't imagine that was much fun for the people at home watching that game. It wasn't pretty. But the second half was much better from an Arsenal point of view, and in the end, United just couldn't deal with them really, and I think they were pretty fortunate to get away with just a 2-0 defeat.
Fun press conference as well, by the way. Mikel was. I'm convinced that Arsenal take longer over corners than they used to, and that a lot of other teams used to. And I know Gary Neville, and heaven forbid anyone mentioned to an Arsenal fan Gary Neville. I know he mentioned in the West Ham game, he said, "Oh, looks like Saka's taking a while. He's walking like he's injured." And it was good fun, sort of trying to get Arteta to address that. He insists they don't take longer on corners. I just don't believe him.
I think they do. I think they do. I think it's definitely some sort of strategic plan to it, not just corners, throw-ins as well.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some sort of strategic. I'd be stunned if there's not. Everything that he does is so carefully mapped out that I'm sure they do that. I was really interested. I was watching the corners so closely yesterday. Just how they do them. As soon as the set piece is given, then Kivior trots up from the back. He's in conversation with Nicholas Jova on the touchline. Then so he gets the message from Jova. Kivior then goes to Odegaard, delivers a message to Odegaard. Odegaard then tracks over to whoever's taken a corner, whether it's Saka or Rice, relays the message onto them, and then everyone in the middle gets the message. It's just done so every single time, and I was really focusing on yesterday and how especially the fact that Kivior was just kind of the guy who gets the message and then he goes on and relays it to everyone else, and it just slowly gets passed on, and then everyone takes up their position, everyone does their jobs, and we'll talk about set pieces, I'm sure, in this show. But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting watching really closely exactly what Arsenal do from these set pieces. And then maybe that is why it takes so much time, is because they're each getting the specific message of what they have to do for this specific routine that Jova wants them to do.
And I feel like all the while all of that is happening, the other team are just sort of looking at Saliba, usually Big Gabby, Partey, all those guys, and they almost they're being afforded the time to panic. And I think especially after Timber's goal, United's approach to set pieces was just like, oh God, please make it stop. Hurling themselves at no one was sort of taking responsibility. Arsenal's best chance of the whole game, I thought, was that Xerxes flick on to Akate. And yeah, I think it has got to the stage now where it feels like, if you want to, maybe Rory Delap with a towel in his hand. I also said maybe Glenn McGrath in the 90s, maybe at Lords, top of his run up, and every time you think, oh God, something's going to happen.
Well, I really enjoyed the theatre of it yesterday. It was the first time that the crowd has really got into it, isn't it? In that second half, there was a real sort of theatre-like performance every time the corner was about to come in, from the crowd getting into it and whipping up the atmosphere. And I bet that does play a part on the opposition as well now. There's just that sense of anticipation of what's to come, and the opposition thinking, oh my God, here comes another one. And the thing is, with all these set pieces, if the delivery's crap, then, it's just done and dusted, headed away. But it's just so good. Like Declan Rice yesterday, those corners
He's
he was
going to score one.
Unbelievable. The quality, just hitting his mark time. I actually thought Saka was a little bit off of his corners yesterday.
Yeah.
But from the other side, Declan Rice, was just unbelievable delivery. And when you do that time after time after time, you're going to score, especially with the players that Arsenal got who can attack them in the central areas. And yes, United just looked an absolute quivering mess by the end every time they came in. But I thought, on the whole, Arsenal played very well in that second half. At times, there was some really good play. I thought when Trossard came on, I thought he linked up really well down that left-hand side and caused problems. They should have scored more than they did. They had opportunities even in open play, but in the end, it was a very good result under. I was going to say under pressure, but I wonder how much they knew at half-time, if any sort of message was delivered in terms of what was happening in the other games. But, the fact that City were winning comfortably, Chelsea were winning comfortably, Liverpool, Newcastle was on a knife edge. I imagine Mikel probably kept that from them, but you could certainly sense it in the crowd that stuff was going on elsewhere. And it was a big, big win.
One final atmosphere point. If anyone from the Ashburton Army is watching, I know you guys have a drum. Let's start deploying that drum at corner kicks. Let's really ratchet up the tension here. I want a dun 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 dun, like this is Helm's Deep or whatever. Let's you got to use every sort of every marginal gain you can, and I think turning these corners into almost like a siege for the opposition would be something pretty helpful.
What have you made of the reaction to it all? I think Dimir Berbatov was on the touchline. It was kind of jokey comment about Stoke, and the reaction online from fans, rival fans, and everything like that. I had a bit of a go about it. Not go, but I don't know. It just makes me laugh that people seem to be angry that Arsenal are good at set pieces, rather than angry that their team can't defend them or aren't good at them themselves at the other end of the pitch and just waste them time after time after time. It's like, just looking at that from United fans yesterday, some of the reaction to it, it's like, Arsenal won, how many corners was it? 11, 12, 13 corners
13.
through their pressure. United won
Mhm.
none because they just didn't get anywhere near the Arsenal final third. The only time they did cause Arsenal problems was from set pieces, one in each half. One that eventually was poorly cleared, and eventually Dalot splashed it wide, and the other one from De Ligt's header, obviously, that brought that brilliant save from David Wright. Yeah, it just makes it's like, what, I don't understand why people seem to be looking down on the fact that Arsenal are just very, very good at corners. I just think it's down to jealousy. I just think there's nothing else to it. It's just they wish they could do what Arsenal were doing. I don't see there's any other reason than that.
Absolutely. This isn't a sport that awards style points. I
But
actually
it's
really
not like
enjoy.
Arsenal don't play good football.
Mhm.
They mix it up. They score very good goals. They look at West Ham last week. The goals they scored then. Yes, they scored a set piece, but look at the goals they scored from open play as well. They mix it up. It's not just just score 55 goals a season, half of which are set pieces.
Yeah,
It's complete. It's a complete mixture.
we weren't talking about set pieces when they were, even though they were scoring them, when they were running in 5, 6 a game in January.
Mm,
Um, I think it is a triumph of Arteta and his coaching staff that they have effectively come up with a really powerful way of scoring goals when they're playing badly. And badly would be an exaggeration, but Arsenal were off their highest level against Man United for even the second half. There was levels they could get to, and certainly the first half. And in those games against the team with playing in a low block and defending for their lives, Arsenal have got a way to win more so than other teams.
mm,
I think it's really powerful, and like you say, rival fan bases should be saying, "Oh, wait a minute, why is our set piece coach, because they all have them now, not as good as not Andres Jorgensen, who was, I don't know if you saw this, it almost seemed like he was sacked mid presser by Amarim, who said, "Oh, he's helping on set pieces now, and
right.
it's my assistant coach." Why have they not got their own Nicholas Yeova? Every team in the Premier League has big, tall players. Why are they not dealing with Gabriel? Why are they not dealing with William Saliba? And why are they then not going down the other end and causing Arsenal problems? It, it's not. It's not like Arsenal have sort of are cheating their way into that. And sometimes the timber push on Paqueta, they're bending the rules for sure, but it's not like they're doing anything that's a beyond the abilities of other football teams. It's not like they're spending £300 million more than anyone else in the transfer market, warping the game that way. They've just sort of realised that you get 10, 12 chances to put an unimpeded cross into the box a game. You really should be exploiting them, and
Mm.
they do that really well.
Well, how many times have we sat here and lamented Arsenal's sort of inability to break low blocks down, and
Mm.
now they've got a perfect way of doing that against a
Yeah,
team who literally came and just sat deep and were looking at, well, it looked like all they wanted was a draw from the game yesterday, and that was it. Maybe a counter-attacking goal, but the United came looking to keep things tight and basically looking for a draw. And if you're facing a team like that, you need ways to break them down. If you can't do it in open play because they're so tight and there's so little space, and like you said, when you've got the weapons that Arsenal have attacking crosses into the penalty area, and you got someone who can deliver a ball like Saka and Declan Rice, why on earth wouldn't you look to exploit that every single week? It just baffles me. I have to say, but it was a really, it was a massive win, wasn't it? I mean, what did you think? Did you watch the Liverpool Newcastle game? Did you go back? You said you watched Match of the Day, didn't you? It was some mad,
yeah,
mad
I did.
game.
And sort of had the first half on. Press box Wi-Fi in the Emirates wasn't the best, but it was sort of dipping in and out of it as well. I think, especially in that first half, you were like, could we put Liverpool Newcastle on the big screen? Yeah, I think that was a moment that showed you that Liverpool are not invulnerable. I mean, it was also a reminder that Newcastle are a better team than their record, and that Alexander Isak's a superstar.
What a
Yeah,
goal!
I, I mean, it's not exactly breaking news, this, but should anything happen with Mo Salah, that that would be, that's the difference between City, Arsenal, and Liverpool right now. It is their foundational superstar players. Arsenal have sort of been without them quite frequently. City have really frequently been without them, and I don't know if Salah and Van Dijk have missed a minute. I know that Trent has, but I think those are the big two, aren't they? And
Salah never ever seems to be injured. I can barely remember a time when Salah was injured. I've
yeah,
maybe
he's
got
missed
it.
half an hour this season, which I
Is he?
presume is a game already won.
It's remarkable how his body stands up to it, the demands of the Premier League, Salah, especially now when you think, what, he's in, is he 32 now? 31, 32, and he's
32.
still going strong. He's just remarkable. He's a cheat code, basically, isn't he? He's unbelievable. I took my FPL captaincy off Salah last night and gave it to Saka. So the fact that Saka didn't get a goal or an assist is totally my fault. Yesterday, I was kicking myself for it. But yeah, it was a hell of a game. Absolutely hell of a game. Alexander Isak's goal, what a strike that was. Oh, unbelievable. What did you make of... Did you see Virgil van Dijk barging into Anthony Gordon?
Yeah, penalty.
How's that not a penalty? I don't understand. There seems to be a lot of talk of why that wasn't a red card, but I don't really... I'm not sure if it's a red card or not, but I don't see how that's possibly not a foul. Was that even mentioned in
Van Dijk? I think people don't think that Van Dijk does that.
Yeah. It's just so... Because they in the commentary of the highlights, because I watched Match of Day as well, they didn't even mention that. They were like, oh, VAR's checking for a possible red card. But I was thinking, well, sod the red card. Is that not a penalty? Remember when Jens Lehmann in the Invincibles game against Tottenham gave away a penalty for that? Him and Robbie Keane had that fight on the line, and like Keane pushed him, and then Lehmann pushed him back, and suddenly he gave away a penalty. It's like the only time you ever see something like that ever given.
But it just booked on. I mean, yeah, just on. Yeah,
I'm just not... I don't see how you can look at that VAR and say, well, the ball was still in play and Van Dijk has just come over and literally smashed his shoulder into Andy Gordon on purpose, clearly on purpose. How's that not a foul?
And so I think they got away with one. Had been on VAR.
Yeah. Let's not go there. And then they had the one in the second half as well. Konza on Isak. They did get a little touch on the ball. That was one that I think if a referee gives that on field, there's no way that's been overturned. So
yeah, exactly.
It was very, very tight. But yeah, that was a hell of a game. And I've got the league table here, actually. Where is it? Where did I put it? Let's have a look
Arsenal's
at it.
Alphabetical order reign in second place is over.
See, that wasn't alphabetical order. It wasn't.
It was, wasn't it?
No, it was down to away goals scored because everything was level and Arsenal scored one goal at Chelsea and they hadn't had hadn't had the game at the Emirates yet. Everyone seemed to think it was alphabetical order, but it wasn't. It was down to away goals in the head-to-head between the two. But yeah, I mean, look at that. It's very, very tight up there. Of course, Liverpool got their commanding lead still, but it is just 7 Merseyside derby to come this weekend. You know, things can change very, very quickly, can't they? And it'll be interesting how Liverpool respond to that. The disappointment. By the way, what a finish from Shah for that goal.
Yeah, that was better.
He could do that 20 more times and not score. It's an unbelievable finish. Yes, Keller had a mistake, but unbelievable finish from Shah.
The funny thing is, I'd have more confidence in Fabian Schär scoring Isak's goal because we know he has that sort of shot in it.
Yeah.
Than I would like if I gave him 10 goes, maybe Schär scores 1. I don't think Isak or many other players could have scored that one.
No.
What a goal! What a shocker from Kelleher as well.
It was. I mean, he's been brilliant, Kelleher, hasn't he, since he stepped in? But it was a misjudgment. But even so, there was so much for Schär to do in that instant. It was a brilliant, brilliant finish. So yeah, 7 points clear now. It's very tight underneath that, isn't it? Chelsea, Arsenal, and City separated by just 2 points. It's definitely not insurmountable, is it? I mean, you look at that lead; they are not out. They are not out of sight. As much as a lot of people kind of trying to make out that it is done and dusted, it's just far from it. And I still absolutely think that Man City are that 100% still in this title race at the moment.
Oh yeah, when you see just how everything clicks back into place with De Bruyne, just in terms of the attack, if nothing else. You do think, you'd have, if you're Mikel Arteta, you'll be thinking, I'd have liked that run to go on a little bit longer, 2 more games, and they would have slipped out of it. And maybe they still will, because I have to say, I don't know if you saw the highlights of that one, but early on there were openings for Forest, and Forest are not a particularly attack-minded team. But if Chris Wood had scored in the first 10 minutes, I think it was, that, who knows where that game would have gone.
Chris Wood doesn't score against Man City. He just misses chances against Manchester City. That's all he does.
I had to put that out of my mind. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at Liverpool's fixture list a lot when they were 3-2 up. I think Everton have got a great chance to do them a favour. Saturday 12:30 just to me screams sort of frustrating 1-1 draw. After that, they've got Fulham, they've got Spurs, Leicester, West Ham, United. I know everyone's thinking about this as a time Arsenal can go on a run, but it just doesn't feel like, looking at those games, a run would be beyond Liverpool either. And, if they just keep on at this 95, 96 point pace, I think if you're Arsenal, you've just got to throw your hands up and say, that wasn't a pace we could hit, given everything out of our control that happened this season.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully they don't carry on this run. I look at that Everton game. That's going to be interesting. I was quite glad to see Everton had a really good win, confidence boosting win yesterday. 4-0. It's a shocker for Wolves, that result. Shocker for Gary O'Neill. But yeah, I was quite happy that Everton got that win ahead of the Merseyside derby. It's going to be the last Merseyside derby at Goodison, of course, as well, isn't it? So you would think they're going to be really fired up for that. They had a good win against them last season at Goodison. So hopefully they can. Is that 12:30? Did you say?
12:30 on Saturday. How
I'm
beautiful it will be when Goodison Park is knocked down. I'm sorry, Everton fans. I hate it.
I don't like it from a press point of view. I like it from a stadium point of
Yeah,
view.
of course.
You know, but from a working press point of view, it's an absolute shocker. So yeah, I'll be quite glad not to have to squeeze my knees into that press box again. But
Apropos of very little, Everton's next 4 games: Liverpool at home, Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, City away. So
big
Sean
win from
Dyche could
them
do
last
with
night.
some
Then
points. Yeah, so Sean Dyche could do with some points.
I don't like the look of their new stadium. I've got to say, it doesn't scream that
Everton, does it?
That's impressive to me. I mean, it's obviously the settings on the river and stuff. Is quite cool, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't like it. It's very, very generic inside. I think could have done a better job than that. But yeah, so there's the league table. It's all to play for. And we've got Fulham coming up this weekend. Me and you sat next to each other for it last season at Craven Cottage and just sort of sat there shaking our heads at what we were seeing from Arsenal. It was really, really bad. You know, Mikel's used those sort of previous experiences to fire the team up before, hasn't he? Sort of bad results, or individuals getting under their skin. You know, Ivan Toney kick about with the boys and all that sort of stuff. He's used that to Arsenal's advantage. Do you think he'll be certainly reminding them in the next couple of days of what happened at Craven Cottage and how bad that performance was last season?
Absolutely, and not least because I mean you have to fire them up in a different way because you know Fulham didn't wind Arsenal up. They didn't, you know, I think there was a bit of bad blood with the way Brentford had played. But I mean, like that Brentford game, I think Arsenal can look at that and say, this is all on us. We need to show this club who we are, that we're the real Arsenal. And I think they will be angry and they will know that Fulham are the reason that they didn't win the title last season. So I do expect them to come out really strong. I'm not at that game, but I'm at Fulham tonight. So I think it's also worth bearing in mind Fulham will have had 24 hours less rest. So I kind of everything points to this one actually being one where I think Arsenal should get the job done quite effectively. And obviously, as you know, I'm no admirer of Fulham's football.
Well, you are an admirer of Emil Smith-Rowe, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. You think he's going to be fired up for the weekend?
And Reece Nelson is starting to get. Oh, well, of course he won't play, will he?
No, he's on loan, isn't he? So that won't happen. So it'll just be Emil, Burn, Leno, and Alex Iwobi in the Arsenal crew in the Fulham team. Iwobi's having a good season. Yeah, normally a decent place to go. I always enjoy Craven Cottage, and Arsenal tend to do pretty well there. But last season was an absolute shocker. That was a horrible performance. So hopefully they can get things right. I mean, ahead of that game, I just wanted to talk a little bit about. Actually, I had a question on this. Here we go. It's from Vet Para, who says, "Hi Charles. I think the most encouraging thing from these last 4 games has been that Arteta is finally rotating the squad. I think giving Rice a break against Forest has really helped him." And I was reading that, and it got me thinking about what we've seen from Arteta in the last 4 games since the international break and the sort of changing of the team. You know, when he surprised us all in that starting lineup against Forest, then Sporting, he went kind of with the team that we all kind of figure as Arsenal's strongest team. And then there was changes again last week at West Ham. You know, Martinelli didn't even come on against West Ham, and then he comes back into the team for the game yesterday. Do you think we're seeing a shift from Mikel in how he's using his squad? Because we've all sat here and criticised him in the past for not using his squad enough and not giving enough minutes to players so that when they do come in, they come in cold. But then recently we've seen Zinchenko, for example, come on and play well against Sporting, come on and play well against West Ham. And then, you know, he's ready to start yesterday when needed against United. Whereas, you know, if he hadn't been given those minutes against Sporting and West Ham, maybe he would have come in cold and he wouldn't have been able to produce the sort of performance he did yesterday. Kivior's got a few minutes here and there recently, and then he gets chucked in yesterday and has a really good performance as well. You know, do you kind of sense that Arteta's looked at how busy the fixture list is now and thinks, you know what, I've got to change. I've got to shift how I manage this squad a little bit and make sure that everyone feels involved and everyone's getting minutes because I am going to need them to play. Do you think there's been a bit of a change?
Yes, and he's talked about that almost every game. And last night he was at pains to go out of his way and praise Zinchenko, along with on a question he was asked about Kivior. I think it was actually even a question about Gabriel that he answered on, and he does that sort of thing. But I was just looking at it. I think 17 players in this 4-game stretch since the international break. 17 players have played over 90 minutes. 19, there's basically a squad of 19 at the moment. With Tierney coming back into contention to make it 20. Pretty much everyone other than Nwaneri and Sterling have had reasonable minutes. Sterling and Martinelli are the only players that have only featured in 2 games. But equally, the only players that have played all 90 minutes of all 4 games are Raya and Saliba. Timber's had a rest. I wonder if maybe, though, he could do with dropping out of the 11 at Craven Cottage, maybe, and you put Partey at right back. Challenge. I know it's hard to quite get a grasp on, but I do think Arteta's done such a good job, and he's kind of been rewarded with that faith. That picture says it all. Kivior was fantastic.
He was very good, wasn't he?
Just playing the guy at left centre back from the off alongside your best centre back. It turns out he can do quite a good job then. Really impressed. I thought Zinchenko had a very Zinchenko-y performance, didn't he? There were so many moments that you liked. There were too many moments that you went, ugh. And about the 70-minute mark, you were like, yeah, he can't move anymore, can he? But even then, because Arteta's using his depth, because he's not afraid of anyone that's on his bench, you just bring Jorginho on, Partey right back, Timber left back, and that little passage where Ahmad was looking threatening, that's done. So I'm really impressed with this. Everyone that watches this regularly knows that it's been my hobby horse. I worry that Arteta doesn't use his squad well enough. If it sort of carries on in this vein until the FA Cup 3rd round, really confident then about the shape Arsenal be in.
Why do you reckon he's changed then? What do you reckon? Do you think it's just purely down to the fixture list and how many games are being played now that he thinks I can't do anything different? Or do you think he's actually someone's had a word, or do you think he's decided that he needs to change things? Because it does feel quite. I mean, those numbers you pointed out there feel quite, dramatic. There is a definite difference then in how he has been managing things.
I mean, no one's going to convince Arteta to change other than Mikel Arteta. He does listen, but he's very confident in his own opinion. But I would wonder to what extent the sheer weight of injuries and defence has just made him take a pause and say, I can't play guys that are in what Arsene Wenger would have called the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to make sure that I always have a functioning back 4. And they were quite close to not having a functioning back 4 yesterday, and we haven't even spoken about that half an hour in. I think if he hadn't been hit hard by injuries, now I wonder if we'd be saying, oh, Mikel's only using 15 players. What happens if he's hit by injuries in March? Well, the one plus side of having the big injury crisis early in the season is you've seen what guys like Kivior can do, what guys like Partey and Jorginho can now do, even in their advanced years. So whatever the explanation, and maybe one for Arteta's presser if you're going on Friday, I like it.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, Kivior was great, like you said. I thought he came on, and on the way up to the game, when I saw the team news, I was in the pub on Holloway Road beforehand, and we were talking with a few mates, and it was just like that left-hand side, Kivior and Zinchenko basically coming in from the cold a little bit. It was a little bit of a worry. But yeah, needn't worry. I thought Zinchenko had a good game. He definitely hit that 60, 70-minute mark, and it was like, yeah, he needs to come off now. Obviously the incident that led to the free kick when he got caught out, that was a classic Zinchenko tiring incident, wasn't it? And we were looking at it when we were obviously on the other side of the pitch, and we could see he immediately made a call to the coaching staff, and the number came. You could see they were going to make a change. Like, this is good. And we were like, is he going to bring Tierney on? Are we going to see Tierney at left back?
Oh.
And obviously changed things in a different way. Marino came on midfield, and you moved Timber over there. I wonder what that means for Tierney. In a way, is he just not considered ready yet? Because he's been on the bench for 4 games in a row now. I think we haven't seen him yet. And in that one, you got your left back, who is booked and needs to come off, and yet you don't bring on the left back you have on the bench. You move your right back to left back, you move a midfielder to right back, and Tierney stays on the bench. So I wonder. I mean, look, I think we're all expecting Tierney will be going in January, aren't we, on
Yeah.
loan? But yeah, I was a little bit surprised that he changed things so much rather than just going like for like Tierney on for Zinchenko.
Yeah, it just means the same thing that we've known about Tierney for several years now. He's just not a Mikel Arteta player, and I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that Thomas Partey at right back does more Arteta fullback things than Kieran Tierney does.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he said, hasn't he? He found it hard. I don't know if the time on the training ground might mean that if he plays, and I'm sure he'll play against Palace in the EFL Cup. I'm sure he'll play that game. Well, maybe play that game. I'd be intrigued to see if he can do what Arteta wants. But yeah, it feels like he's there to make up the numbers and then maybe move on elsewhere in January.
Mm-hmm. So looking ahead to Fulham, then, sort of talking about the squad rotation that he's been doing, do you think we're going to see more of that on Sunday? I imagine we certainly will. I mean, it's Gabriel and Calafiori sound like they were very close to making it last night.
Yes.
At a push and a shove, they could have potentially played through the pain, but I think the sensible decision was taken. It certainly looks like the sensible decision now. Arsenal got the 3 points anyway, was taken, but they could potentially come back for this. Are we going to continue to see the kind of 1 week Trossard, 1 week Martinelli type thing? Potentially Jesus.
We should
get a run out. Do you think we're going to start seeing that sort of stuff again?
Oh, we should. I mean, just specifically on that game, I thought Martinelli was really poor.
I didn't think he was that bad. I didn't think he was great, but I gave him a 7, and I got hammered in the comments for my player rating of him, giving him a 7.
4.
So I think I must have overestimated him. I just thought a lot of the good play that Arsenal did down that left-hand side, which led to corners, it was Martinelli driving at his man and winning a corner and things. So I thought he was still a little bit of a threat.
The moment that would worry me, though, was early in that first half when, Martinelli gets the ball, goes, he's bearing, is it Lindelof he's bearing down? I can't remember which, or Delict, whoever it is. And he just doesn't do anything. He doesn't go outside, doesn't go inside, sort of narrows down his own angle and then tries to fire the ball through the defender's legs. And I found there's just been a little bit of that decision paralysis with Martinelli in the last few weeks, where he just doesn't seem to know what he wants to do. And I think sort of the Martinelli of 22-23 just already had a picture in his mind of how he's going to score and get an assist. And that feels like that, we've seen that Martinelli this season as well, but it feels like it's gone a little bit. So I would bring Trossard in.
He played well, Trossard, when he came on. I thought,
yeah,
he played well.
I would be looking to give. I don't know if it's going to be possible to give Timber a rest. If not, I might just move Kivior to left back, give him more minutes because he's earned them, and play him, Gabriel, Saliba, and Timber, maybe.
Yeah, I think I'd probably stick. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd move Kivior to left back. I think if Calafiori doesn't make it, I think Zinchenko probably would carry on. It's Monaco on Wednesday, isn't it, in the Champions League?
It is Monaco on Wednesday.
Zinchenko another game, and then hopefully Calafiori will be back for the Monaco game. I agree. I think Trossard for Martinelli is pretty much a given. I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen. I do wonder about Jesus, if he might look to get some game time into Jesus. He didn't come on yesterday, Jesus, did he?
No.
I wonder if he might look to get some more game time into Jesus, but it is just the games coming thick and fast. Like I said, Monaco Wednesday, then it's Everton at the weekend, then it's Palace in the Cup, isn't it? And then Palace in the League. It's just non-stop, absolutely non-stop. All these players. It'd be really, really handy. That's sort of the game that Kivior and Zinchenko had yesterday, which would have been a bit of a confidence booster to the pair of them. It would be very handy if we could have that sort of thing in the league for Jesus and for Sterling. Just something to happen for them in the league, big moments to really give them a confidence boost, to feel like, yeah, I'm part of this squad, I'm helping. It would be really handy at some point for that to happen, not at Preston away, but in a big moment in the Premier League.
Yeah. God, the games are coming thick and fast. I've just sort of sent my editors my calendar for the festive period. It's relentless, Charles. It's absolutely killing me. Got Spurs, Chelsea this weekend, Arsenal, Monaco. Never. I mean, I know this is really an incredibly unsympathetic, pitying act because so many people would love to go to these games, but someone please
I don't
think
think
of
you're going to
Her
get many.
Majesty's press.
I don't think you get many people pulling out the violins for you, mate. Here, moaning about getting paid to go and watch football.
Surely going to watch Spurs Chelsea, I'll get a bit of sympathy on
Oh,
here.
maybe you get some sympathy for that one. Maybe you will, but yeah. So you're not at Fulham on Sunday. We're not gonna have a repeat of us sitting next to each other.
Well, that was my
head in
logic.
hand.
That was my sort of. I was like, well, what about if it is a curse? Can't be too safe. You know, we'll let Fulham get on with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing them tonight as well.
Cool. Well, hopefully you've taken one for the team at the weekend, and that means that Arsenal do get the 3 points and do respond to what happened last season. Look, I think that's about it for this week, everyone. Thank you very much for watching and listening. As always, I'll be back in the morning for the usual show. We've got Mikel Arteta's press conference at 1:30 p.m. as well, ahead of that game against Fulham. So anything you want to get discussed in tomorrow's show, get into the comments. You know what to do. Leave your comment, your opinion, your question. I'll pull some of them together and get them included. Until then, everyone, have a very good Thursday evening. Myself and James will be back to do this all over again next week. I'll speak to you very, very soon. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.